This is the factoring refresher. So first we think about greatest common factor. What divides out of both of these? A 6 will. What's left? 2 times 6 is 12. And 3. Okay, we got two terms here. What divides into both of those? An 8 would. How many x's can I take out of both? I can take 4 out. How many y's can I take out? I can take out a y. So 8 times 5 gives you 40. And 4 more x's, and I already have the y, plus 8. Don't need any more x's or y's there. These three here, and take out a 7m squared. Divides out of all three of them. 7 times 2 makes 14, and m to the 4th together gives you m to the 6th. 7 times 5 is 35. 1 more m gives you 3. And minus 1. Sometimes people forget that 1. Remember, if you distribute through, it has to give you that. Okay, third one, we can take out nothing but 3, 5, and 8, but I can take an a out of all of them and a b. So if I take an a and a b out, I'm left with 3b, and 5a, and an 8. Okay, so when you factor, always look for the GCF first, just like we did all that up there, right? Always do that first. Okay, next we have trinomials here. So we think about setting up our two parentheses and seeing what happens. So x times x gives me x squared. Okay, what times what's going to give me 45? Okay, well, it could be a couple of different things, but it has to add to be 14. So I'm thinking 5 and 9. 5 times 9 is 45, and outside and inside gives me the 14. Okay, w times w is w squared, 26. All I know is 13 and 2. Also has to be a negative times a negative to give you a positive, and add to be a negative. So negative 13 and negative 2 would be negative 2, and negative 13 is negative 15. C times c, okay, gives you negative 48. I think 8 times 6, right? One has to be positive, one has to be negative to give you a negative 48. And 6 and 8, so which one has to be positive? The 8 has to be positive, the 6 negative. So when I do that, it gives you positive 2. N times n is n squared. Okay, negative, so one has to be negative, one has to be positive. By the way, it doesn't really matter. Like, you could also write this as c minus 6 times c plus 8, right? It doesn't really matter which order they go in. So anyway, I think it's 9 times 8. Which one has to be negative? The 9 has to be negative. Okay, this one here, 36, 6 and 6, both give you 6 plus 6 is 12, 6 times 6 is 36. N times n is n squared. Okay, signs, once again, has to be a negative and a negative. 1 and 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 is 1. Negative 1 and negative 1 add to be negative 2. Okay, so here, oh, I almost messed up. First thing we got to do is look at our GCF. I can take a 2 out of all of them. So I am left with k squared minus 8k minus 20. Now I can take that and factor it down. So I get k and k. Okay, negative 20, so it's going to have to be a negative and a positive, and 10 and 2 will give me the negative 8. Here, take out the 5. Z squared minus 5z plus 6. Okay, so 6, 2 negatives, right? And 2 and 3. Okay, multiply and add there. Okay, now we're getting to the ones where we can't take a GCF out and we have a number there. So we have 2x times x gives me the 2x squared. Okay, to give me, okay, signs, I know it has to be positive, so it has to be positive times a positive or negative times a negative. And since they have to add to be a negative, I know they're both going to be negative. And then 18, I think this will work. That'd be 6 times 2 is 12. And negative 12 and negative 3 give me negative 15. If it doesn't work, you're just going to have to keep putting different numbers in there and keep multiplying it out until you can figure it out. Okay, this one here is 5p times p gives me the 5p squared. My signs are going to have to be a negative and a positive. I don't know, let's try that and see if it works. If not, I'll switch it. And 48, I'm thinking 8 times 6, but you could also use 4 and 12 and 1 and 48 and a lot of different numbers. I think I have to switch signs. So that's negative 30 plus 8 would be negative 22. I want positive, so I need that to be a negative and this to be a positive. So that'd be 30 minus 8 would be 22. Okay, next one here. So we have 3h times h. I'll let you know that if you're not quite sure about these, it does take time to get this. So you just got to keep working at it and keep working at it, okay? And keep multiplying them through until you find those numbers. So 3h times h, I know my signs have to be positive and negative. Okay, 40 could be 40 and 1, could be 2 and 20, could be 4 and 10, could be 5 and 8. Okay, so those are the different possibilities to give you 40. So what's going to work here? If I put the 1 in the 40, that's not going to work. It's going to get too high there with it, right? The 2 in the 20, if I put a 20 here, that goes up to 60. That's not going to work. If I put the 2 here, it'd be 6 and 20. That's not going to give me the 19. 4 and 10, put the 10 here, that'd be 30 minus 4, not 19. And 12 and 10 won't work either. Okay, so let's try 8 and 5. So 24, negative 24 plus 5 gives me the negative 19. Okay, this one here, it might be 12x times x. It might be 6x times x, 2x. Or it might be 4x times 3x. Luckily, this one is only 2 times 1. That's the only thing from there, right? And the signs are going to have to be positive and negative. So if I get it wrong, I can switch it around. So 12, yeah, that's not going to work. I think this will work because it gives me 8 minus 3 is 5. Okay, so once again, if it doesn't work, just keep playing with them and you'll figure them out eventually. Okay. This might be 6y times y, or 3y times 2y. 21, it's either 21 times 1 or 7 times 3. It's going to be one of those two. Usually it's not the 21 and 1, but sometimes it is. Okay, and I know my signs are a negative and a positive. So if I put the 7 and the 3 in there, 7 and 3 not going to work. 7 and 3 not going to work. Let's try 7 and 3 down here. 7 and 3, that gives me 9 minus 14. It works. Okay, so I found them there. Okay, this one here, notice they're all even, so I can start with my GCF. Okay, and then I can start factoring from there. It might be 4m times 2m, or it might be 8m times 1m. To give that, 27, probably 9 times 3, but it could be 27 times 1, or that's it. Okay. So that gives me 36 minus 6 would be 30. So that's the correct one right there. Okay, these here, no GCF. So it might be 3x times x, or it might be 9x times x. And 4 is probably 2 times 2. Negative 2 and negative 2 would be negative 6, and negative 6 could be negative 12. Okay, it's even. I can divide a 2 out, and actually I can divide an 8 out of all of those. Okay, so then from there, y times y is y squared. 3 and 4 give you 7 and 12. Okay, difference of squares. difference, x times x, 2 times 2. So x plus 2 and x minus 2. Difference, y times y, 9 times 9. Y plus 9, y minus 9. 3x times 3x, difference, 5y squared, 5y squared. Okay. Mn times mn, 7 times 7, difference. So mn minus 7, mn plus 7. And it really doesn't matter which one's plus and which one's minus in the beginning there. Okay, it's a difference. 72 is not a perfect. Oh, we can take a 2 out of both of them, though. And we would be left with 36, r to the, that's a 6 there, minus s squared. Okay, now we have a difference. Be 6r to the third, times 6r to the third, and s times s. So 6r to the third minus s, 6r to the third plus s. And the last one here, we can factor out a GCF of a 2a squared b. Okay, and then this is a difference of 2 squares. 1 times 1 plus minus be 4a times 4a. Okay, so that's that worksheet. The more factoring review, the more fun you get to have right here. Move it down into your area here. Okay, so once again, okay, when you remember when you're looking at two terms, we're looking either for the difference of squares or the sum difference of cubes. Okay, so we have that there. If you remember the pattern, okay, you got to remember that pattern there for it. So the A is x times x times x. The B is 3 times 3 times 3. So you have x plus 3 and x squared minus 3x plus 3 squared is 9. Okay, the A here, what's being cubed is the m. And the B, what's being cubed here is the 6 times 6 times 6 is 216, 2n, 6n. So our pattern, it's a plus, so we keep the same pattern here. M plus 6n, and then m squared, multiply them together, minus 6mn, and then square this, be plus 36n squared. Once again, a cubic, but first, GCF, we can take out a 4. And that gives you 125a to the third plus 1. So we have, gave us a clue that it was going to be a cubic, but now it is. Your A is a 5a, and your B is a 1. So it'll be 5a, and this is a plus, so plus 1. Okay, we got to square this. So it'll be 25a squared. Multiply them together, minus 5a. And lastly, 1 squared is 1. Okay, this one here, GCF first. 3 divides into both of those, and a c to the fourth and a d gives us 8c to the third plus 125d to the third. After we do GCF, we notice we got a sum of cubes. Okay, so what's being cubed here? 2 times 2 times 2. And what's being cubed here? 5 times 5 times 5. So 2c and 5d. So thinking about that pattern right there again. So it'd be 2c plus 5d. Okay, now we got to square it. 2c would be 4c squared. Minus, multiply them together, 10cd. And lastly, d this squared, so 25d squared. Should have made it a little bit longer there. Okay, once again, a cubic, x times x times x, and 1 times 1 times 1. Okay, so be x. Okay, now notice this one is minus here, so it's going to be minus the 1 here. And then that squared. Okay, this, if that's minus, this one's going to be plus. Multiply them together gives you 1. Okay, and squared is 1. Okay, this one would be 6k times 6k times 6k, and 5 times 5 times 5. So we have 6k minus 5. Got to square it. 36k squared. If that's minus, this is plus. Multiply them together is 30k. And lastly, 5 squared is 25. A lot of cubic ones here in the beginning here. Give you some practice with those. Not a cubic, but there is a GCF. Take out a 4. Now we have a cubic. So it'd be 1 and 2h. 1 squared is 1. I'll put them up here, 1 and 2h. Okay, your A and your B. Multiply them together is, oh, yep, plus. That's a minus, that's a plus. I thought I might have messed up there for a second, but I didn't. And then square it, be 4h squared. With all these, you could multiply it all through and get the right answer there. Number 8, GCF is a 2. And then we got our cubic pattern. We got x times x times x, 3y times 3y times 3y. So it'll be x minus 3y squared plus multiplied together plus that squared. Okay. Now we got to our 4. Okay, so if you remember back in the notes, when there's 4, we're going to use something called grouping, factor by grouping. Okay, so we're going to group the first 2 together and the second 2 together. The first 2, I can take out an x squared, left with x plus 1. Second 2, I'm going to take out a negative 1. I'm left with x plus 1. Now I took out a negative because I needed these to match, right? Not a negative 1, a negative 4. Okay, so now one of the factors is x plus 1. Other factor, what's being distributed to x plus 1? Well, x squared is being distributed through to x plus 1. And negative 4 is also being distributed through to x plus 1. Okay, so that's using grouping. Here's the thing, though. We got to go farther here. This is a difference of squares, so this would be x plus 2, x minus 2, and then that x plus 1. So don't forget at the end to look to see if you can go farther. I will say this. Whenever you have a cubic, this will never go farther. That'll never factor farther. So whenever you do a cubic, you know that you're at the end. Okay, group it again. Take out an x squared, left with x minus 1. Take out a 9, left with x minus 1. Okay, factors. One factor is the x minus 1. The other, x squared is being distributed through, and the 9. Now some of you would be tempted to say this is x plus 3, x minus 3, but this is a plus here and not a difference of squares, so we're done. Okay, here I'm going to take out the k squared, left with k plus 5. Now to make this match, I have to take out a negative 1 to make it a positive k and a positive 5. Now they match. So one of my factors is k plus 5. The other is k squared minus 1. Notice difference of squares. So k plus 1, k minus 1 times k plus 5. Grouping again. I can take a v squared out here. So 4v minus 5. To get it to match, I'm going to take out a negative because the signs are different. And I can divide a 4 out. So that'd be 4v minus 5. So 4v minus 5 is one factor, and v squared minus 4 is the other factor. Once again, difference of squares here. V plus 2, v minus 2 times your 4v minus 5. Okay, keep going. Okay, these two here, I can take out a 2x to the 4th, left with x minus 9. Take out a 7 here, and I'm left with x minus 9. x minus 9 is one factor. 2x to the fourth plus 7 is your other factor. Here, take out a 3w as the greatest common factor. 9w to the fourth minus 25. Now it's not a cubic, okay, but I can look for difference of squares, which it is. So 3w squared times 3w squared. Remember, difference of squares, one's positive, one's negative, 5 times 5. We should look again, is this another difference of squares, but it's not. 3 and 5 aren't perfect squares there, so I'm done. Last one, GCF, I can take out a 10, an x squared and a y squared. Gives me x to the 6th plus 8y to the 3rd. Okay, look in this here. It's not a difference of squares, but it is a cubic. Okay, so this would be x squared times x squared times x squared. This would be 2y times 2y times 2y. So we have x squared, okay, this is a plus, so plus 2y. Squaring this gives me x to the fourth minus 2x squared y. Squaring this, 4y squared. Okay, there's the end.